In this video, we're going to talk about how to write an introductory paragraph. Now, I want to preface this by saying that this is not the only way to write an introduction paragraph, and it might not be the best way depending on your subject matter. And you certainly should experiment with different styles and not use this for every paper for the rest of your life. With that said, this is a great way to start making progress, and chances are, if you're watching this video, you're probably under a deadline, so let's dive right into it. Assuming your paper's in MLA format, you're going to start out with your name, teacher, class, and date. And the date, of course, is European style, so it would be 7 November 2021, or whatever day it is. After that, you want to move into an interesting title. That's easier said than done, and I could do an entire video on how to come up with great titles, but for now, let's at least say it should be creative, and it should not be named whatever the assignment is, so don't name it research paper. Oftentimes, I'll have students who are writing a comparison between two books, and they make the books like versus one another, which is a good title if it's some sort of Street Fighter-like scenario that the books are going through. But if you're just comparing them, that's not the best title. Just remember, in the real world, people aren't paid to read your writing always, like your teacher is. Probably a ton of money, I'm sure. So make sure your title is interesting and makes your reader want to read whatever it is you're writing. After that, you want to move into the hook. So the hook is the first sentence of the intro paragraph. There's a lot of different ways to do a good hook. You could have an interesting statistic, an insightful quote, a definition, or an example of figurative language, like something poetic or a metaphor, a little anecdote even. You just have to make sure that it fits whatever your topic is, and make sure, again, that it's interesting. A lot of students will say, the dictionary defines blah 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 as this, but that's really only interesting if that word is interesting. That's a pretty cliche opening to a research paper. So I wouldn't say you can't do that. You just have to make sure you have the right word. And then here's a big pitfall a lot of students fall into. Do not open your paper with the person's birth. Don't say William Shakespeare was born in 15 whatever in Stratford upon Avon, unless your paper is about Shakespeare, and more specifically about something connected to his birth or place of birth or what happened with his birth. Then we get into the 2 to 3 middle sentences. And there's a few things these sentences have to do, but they still allow you a lot of freedom, and oftentimes students don't really know what to do with these sentences, so it's a good opportunity to impress whoever's reading your paper by showing you put some thought into them. One thing you absolutely have to do is introduce your topic. If you're writing about a specific person, this is the first and only time you use that person's full name, William Shakespeare. After that, he's just Shakespeare. But for here, you can say William Shakespeare wrote Hamlet in, or whatever it is you're writing about. If you're writing about a book, you need to tell the reader what that book is. If you're writing about a scientific theory, tell the reader what that scientific theory is. These sentences have to introduce the topic because your hook is meant to grab their attention. These middle sentences are meant to then explain what the paper is about. Another thing you could do in these sentences is explain why you selected the topic. I allow my students to use first-person pronouns when appropriate. It's a very fine line, especially for beginning writers, but it's one I like them to practice. Your teacher or professor might not allow you to do that, but you can even explain why you selected this topic without using first-person pronouns. Something like, this topic has become increasingly relevant with the blah blah blah. So you've established a relevancy for whatever it is you're writing about. And then finally, you have the thesis statement. And again, there should be a whole video on how to do a thesis statement, but a real quick crash course, a great little template you can use is, what I want my reader to know about this paper is blank. Fill in the blank. Whatever that blank is in your mind, that's what your thesis statement should be built around. It's really important that your thesis statement is a single, unified, specific argument. Avoid 3-point thesis statements because those points should be showing up in the topic sentences of your body paragraphs. Your thesis statement should be an umbrella of those 3 points, or what all those points are arguing toward. So if you've come up with a 3-point thesis statement, chances are you're halfway there. You just need to figure out what are these 3 points arguing for together, and that's your thesis statement right then and there. So I hope you found that useful, and I want to leave you with one more note before we go, and that's that it is okay to leave all of this until the end. It's incredibly difficult to write an interesting title and a hook and a thesis, central argument, if you don't actually know what you're writing about. So sometimes it's better to wait until you finish the paper before you commit to all this sort of stuff. So if the introduction paragraph is holding you up, just write the paper. Just write the rough draft. That's what editing is for. Get some stuff down on paper and then go back and reassess your title, hook, introduction, thesis, and all of that. Hope that was helpful for you. Happy reading and happy writing.